Hello and welcome to Autocar Professional. We are in Delhi at the SIAM annual convention, and it's always a delight to sit with Mr. Chetan Maini to understand the industry. And this is a great time to do that. We've just seen GST reforms kick in. We call it GST 2.0. There's not a lot for EVs. Nothing has changed per se. But then how do you look at the overall consumption pattern changing, industry moving towards electrification, greener technologies per se? If you could just start with that and your opinion on this.
So there's no real benefit for electrics. It makes ICE closer to electrics. Correct. In terms of taxation. So probably from that point of view, and overall economy, I do see a big improvement. In terms of electrics, it'll probably be neutral to negative because internal combustion engines are cheaper today.
Yeah.
And the industry still needs a bit more push to get there. I think the other thing, is still there's an abnormality in terms of how the GST is. So as you're aware, batteries are at 18%,
Correct.
but vehicles are at 5%. And what that means is that with now regular vehicles coming at 18, in a way, as battery swapping business and everything, you're also taxed the same as an ICE vehicle.
Yeah.
In terms of battery.
Yeah.
And a consumer who actually goes and swaps or even charges today pays 18% tax, which is the same level as an ICE level, taxation. So I think these, while vehicles are at 5%, if this anomaly is fixed, and we were hoping it was in this, it would give the right push and impetus for the industry. And the impact is very minimum for the industry because anyway it treats it as 5% from an end vehicle.
Yeah.
So only when you split it up, it's now becoming 18. I'm hoping that the government pushes that because the industry does need a continuous push. It has grown a lot from 300,000 to 2 million in a couple of years. But if we want to get to the aspirations the government wants, the push is going to continue for the next few years.
Yeah, but like we've seen the industry mature over, say, more than 7 years now. We've had PM E-Drive, we have had the FAME 1 and 2 schemes.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of people I speak to who find merit in a intermediate technology, like say hybrid, or it could be hydrogen, ethanol, like a mix of powertrain technologies that we're seeing in the future. So, how do you see? Because they say that India has been given a 7-year window.
Right.
Nothing has moved. The needle hasn't moved as much as one would have expected. So, is there merit in focusing on other cleaner technologies? Because there's challenges as well. You have to. I mean, at a global level, there are commitments. So, how do you sort of look at that?
So there are going to be existing vehicles. So if you brought in fuels that were better for an existing vehicle, I think that's a very good decision because it helps the existing fleet already in place. But as it was also spoken in the earlier session with the minister, our areas of pollution and areas of energy security are two big parts for the country. Now, any other fuel or hybrid, something just reduces the amount of emissions, doesn't go to zero, and reduces the fuel consumption a little bit. But that's too incremental for us as a country that needs to change so dramatically. So I do believe that electrics are the long-term solution. And that's where the energies of the country should go and the policy should go. But in the short term, if other areas like having fuel mixes and stuff help the industry, help the consumers, I think it's a good sale because we're then de-risking the basket of energy and making the efficiency improvements directly.
Got it. You've been a champion of battery swapping from the start, and like one of the sole people who were sort of doing it and have been able to establish a great network, even though there have been like so many incumbents and for both the segments, two-wheelers, three-wheelers. So how do you see the potential of the battery swapping technology? What are the use cases today? And what are the roadblocks that still deter the segment to sort of take a big giant leap?
Yeah. So I think that the industry today has been maturing over the last few years, right? Clearly, from where we stand, we do around 1.5 million swaps every month. We're in 22 cities, so good presence, and we're establishing across 2 and 3 wheelers, right? The use cases have been very clear. By separating the battery, electric vehicles now become much cheaper than petrol vehicles, and the cost per kilometer is cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And this whole issue of range anxiety gets addressed. And the range anxiety is becoming even more important because when a city crosses around 20% adoption, infra becomes a big issue. Where would a three-wheeler person go and charge, right? Can't do it at his home or something like that. And public infrastructure will take hours to do while this will take you 1 or 2 minutes. So clearly there's a large case for shared mobility, for commercial deliveries, and for people movement. What we're seeing right now is there are also cases where people have dual use application. I like to drive a lot, but on a weekend I'm going on my personal side of it. And there again, we're seeing that a new adoption on this. So this is sort of almost going to now B2C for two-wheelers. So we see this also growing. In terms of the hurdles you've talked about, I think we spoke about the GST. I think that's a major one if that does, because think of it, if a three-wheeler person is driving the sort of kilometers every month, the tax impact he's paying extra tax is only 750 rupees extra, right? That is a huge difference for someone who's earning 20,000 rupees a month, right? That he can get this extra money. So it really makes a huge difference on that front. I think the second is that today you want to expand its scale. We have a partner like Indian Oil, they have 39,000 outlets, we have other outlets you're coming across. Getting quick energy connections and it's very often you have to invest in the back end like transformers. If that can be simplified, countries that have done that, they've seen a very large growth in the infra. So I think there's an opportunity there for us to help players come in on this front. And we're also franchising today, so we are very excited that so many entrepreneurs are being created who can now start and be part of the energy space, right? So I feel that we're in the right stage. If a couple of these areas are now looked into, I do feel that swapping in the next few years will grow significantly in our cities.
So are you sort of disappointed because even the auto ancillary players, auto part makers have gotten that kind of benefit, because that could have sort of really helped the battery swapping and even battery infrastructure?
Huge. I think it's just an anomaly. If you buy the battery and put it in a vehicle, it's 5%. If it's separate, it's 18%.
Correct.
It's the same vehicle separated should not be different, right? Similarly, the energy that someone pays for, they shouldn't pay 18% tax on it, right? They should probably pay 5%. So just this anomaly, if it's fixed, I think will go a long way in adoption, because a lot of people today are in the 2 and 3 wheeler space where a few hundred rupees a month make a huge difference in their livelihood.
Correct. You touched upon startups being, at the forefront, especially when it comes to two-wheelers and three-wheelers in the EV ecosystem, and we've seen that in the past. But how do you sort of view, is the ecosystem, is the system sort of favorable for them? Because we've seen so many shutdowns also happen. It's so hard for them to survive. It's a very capital-intensive industry. So how hard is it for a startup to survive and run a sustainable business in this industry, and what could sort of, from a government support point of view, what could sort of change?
So in the battery swapping system, it is very capital intensive. So I would say that, but there could be technologies that go into the swapping that could be very relevant. There could be components that are manufactured that can go. So there is a lot of play for startups in there. I think in the 2 and 3 wheeler manufacturing also today, it's becoming more mainstream. So investments, distribution, everything is more challenging. So startups that have established themselves will continue, but for the new ones, it's going to be more challenging. So I think today for startups working in new technologies, in components, on new cells, BMSs, other electronics, software could be large opportunities. And I would like to see more support from government, on this. We have probably 1,500 startups in this space, but what does it take to get us to 5,000 or 10,000 startups in this space? And there, I think there's been conversations from the government, but I haven't seen policies or a way that people can access funds and solutions to do it. And I think this would be very helpful to build the ecosystem out.
We've seen we had seen semiconductor crisis. Now we're sort of in the middle of a rare earth supply situation, and then tariffs are already happening. It's rejigging the global geopolitical and how it sort of affects every industry. How do you see from that point of view Indian players making it big globally, and even in India, how does it impact the potential of the EV industry growth?
I find with every challenge comes an opportunity. That's how I always look at it. So today, if you have rare earth magnet issues, you're seeing companies innovate in technologies that don't use rare earth magnets. Either they're magnetless or maybe use ferrite magnets. And with that, with new simulation and newer technologies, you can get to efficiencies very close and performances very close, which means this is a good way for us to re-innovate ourselves, to be independent about a resource that we do not have control of in the country, right? Tariff barriers, yes, I think it's going to hurt a few people that for exports on this front. In that space is more the component industry that gets hit, and I think we have to find ways there at geopolitical levels we sort of reduce that, but at our level, what do we do to increase consumption in the country, or look at markets that have less of these challenges? It's forcing us to think through other markets. but those other markets would be new opportunities, and maybe in 3 years or so we're able to build new businesses out of that. And that's, I think, the mindset we should go in as an industry, is to look at this as what is the opportunity in this challenge.
Yeah, and from Sun Mobility's point of view, what is the strategy like if you look at sort of 5 to 10 year term? How do you envision the company into newer businesses, into newer areas of growth, if you could talk from a company point of view as well?
So there are three pieces today for our business, right? One is our 2 and 3 wheeler business in India, for which Sun Mobility develops the core technologies and solutions and manufacturing, and then we sell this to our joint venture with Indian Oil, Indofast, which then goes across the country with customers and expands it. So that's our 2 and 3 wheeler business. We're now expanding this to global markets, so we're entering Africa and Southeast Asia in the months to come, where we're taking OEMs from India, right, and now able to build ecosystems like this in these countries. These markets are slightly different from the product portfolio, and we're working with them, so we see a global expansion as a large portion of our strategy in this front. And the third piece is, extending this to heavy-duty vehicles. So we have solutions from 3.5 tons to 15 tons, and next year we'll be launching them. So a lot of R&D work is going in this space. But eventually, if we think through it, we're a technology business with areas that expand. We also look at next-generation batteries. We are able to expand that to different businesses, to energy storage. We have second life usages, right? So the energy business expands beyond mobility. So Sun Mobility over a period of time sees itself in the energy business, where mobility is a large play, but tomorrow it continues as a continuum with the rest of the energy space.
Overall ecosystem and not just EVs. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about global expansion. We've seen countries getting protectionist, India becoming more global, and EV industry overall, like you've seen the growth is not happening as fast as we've sort of wanted it to be. And even in India, do you see like an impact trickle down in India? What is the sense like in the industry, and why is it not sort of seeing that hockey stick I don't know. But then what will it take to cross that tipping point?
Yeah, a lot of things are coming together, and when that happens, the hockey stick happens. But clearly you're seeing 20-30% growth in some segments, 50% growth, right? So I think that trend is there. And if you look at some markets like China, where it's 50% electric, so you look at Norway, where 94% of all new cars sold electric, you're already seeing certain countries move in that direction. We're a few years behind. But if you look at some markets, for example, look at Bangalore, 1 in 2 scooters sold that are electric, right? It was 3 years ago, 18%.
So sub-segments, a lot of sub-segments.
Correct. If you look at certain parts in North India, 80% of 3-wheelers are electric, right? If you look at buses, 25% of buses in Bangalore are electric, right? And they're adding another 2,500 next year. So you're seeing these sub-segments really successful. Now, what if that slowly starts to expand? What happened in one city, 3 years later may happen in the next city, right? But you're seeing the trend already. And then you're seeing a lot of product expansion coming in, more OEMs, more products which will help us. And the third is going to be the ecosystem, right? Both the charging and swapping infrastructure, because at some point consumers are going to want infra before they get comfortable. So all of these are coming together, and as it hits a critical mass, that's when you start to see that scale up, right? And that builds up with the financing and other options available for consumers. All of it comes together at a much more, because there's more maturity. And so I think we're in that game. We'd have liked to see it a little faster, but I think the right things are being done to get there.
Just leave us with, where are the next markets of growth going to be for swapping specifically domestically? Because as I understand, the growth is not uniform across the board. There are certain segments that are doing very well, certain locations geographically that are doing very well. So where do you see the next phase of growth, and what will sort of trigger that?
So today we're in 22 cities. We've of course started with a lot of the metros and also some tier 1 cities. And the thing in infrastructure, the thing in swapping is you need a certain critical mass. So it's hard to just go to a city where there's 50, 100 vehicles. You need a lot to do it, because one station can take care of 200 scooters, right? So if you look at the scale you need is high. So for us, with our partnership with Indian Oil, we now feel we can go pan-India, right? And we're selecting city by city to say what is it, and they all make sense. It's about 2-wheelers, it's about 3-wheelers. In the north, it's more because there's also e-rickshaws. So there's a larger market of electrification that we see on these fronts. And these exist in all our cities. So it's not...
And it's a very Indian story.
It's a very Indian story.
It's what I was just talking to Suman Mishra. She was telling me we'll be 50% very, very soon penetration.
That's
and
correct.
It's crazy.
Yes. And so again, now customers have an option, and so we see this expansion happening across with the partnerships that we have in place.
Yeah. Thank you on that very, very positive note. Always a pleasure to have your insights.
Thank you for having me here.